I'm going to start off with a little politics. Recently, the former lieutenant governor of Georgia switched parties. Now, that's a big deal to rise to that position, because that demonstrates your institutional loyalty, your talent, your people skills, your luck. You have to really be part of a political party to rise to lieutenant governor. And this gentleman wrote an op-ed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution explaining his switch from his lifelong party to the other. He said, quote, "There's no date on a calendar or line in the sand that points to the exact moment in time my political heart changed, but it has. My decision was centered around my daily struggle to love my neighbor as a insert name of party." He listed a number of issues that he has with his former party's dismantling of our healthcare system and Medicaid, their lack of support for the poor, and their stances on gun control, and what he called their heartless and pointless immigration policies. He said, quote, "The list of reasons why I'm now a insert new party continues to grow. Most importantly, my decision puts me in the best possible position every day to love my neighbor." His simple statement was that the best way to love your neighbor is through compassionate public policy. And that obviously resonated with me, because around week 4 of this project, Julia and I realized we couldn't just be about anger at what was going on racially in this country. That in order to sustain something that would last and be productive and be positive, we needed to ground it in a positive message. And that message needed to be something unimpeachable. And we chose love your neighbor not as a religious item or a religious directive. Doesn't hurt that many people will recognize it as religious, but not just Christian. It underlies so many different religions. But bottom line is, we wanted to use it as the foundation of the moral values of this group. And so every week thereafter, when I stand there with my red, white, and blue "Just Love Your Neighbor" sign and my flag, and I'm flipped the bird, I get a pretty good sense, like this former lieutenant governor did, of where that person stands. If you oppose love your neighbor, you're going to have a hard time with me and probably other members of this group with anything beyond that. And if you start with love your neighbor, we probably have some good common ground until we get a little bit too far out. So imagine an approach to society that relied sincerely on love your neighbor as its moral foundation. To use love your neighbor as the organizing principle of human relations, the role of women, treatment of minorities, respect for people's differences. Now, someone will take this recorded video of this speech and say, "See, I told you Justice Southbury is partisan. I told you you guys are political." Well, I left out the names of the parties. And if you're able to figure out which parties those two are, then it doesn't mean you're political. It just means you're paying attention. You don't have to be partisan to say, well, I care about other people. And if you say something like, I care about other people, and people say, well, yes, see, that's because you're part of that Democratic or Republican group. You're not part of the other one. So if you state your values, maybe people will say, well, therefore you must be this other thing. You tell me you love your neighbor. I bet you support women, don't you? And gay people and immigrants and the poor. Okay, guilty. Doesn't mean I'm here because of a party. I am here, as we have been here for 272 weeks, because of that concept of loving your neighbor and what it means, including through our vision of a more fair and kind community for all. Which, again, if you say, well, I don't like more fair, I don't like more kind, I don't like your definition of community, and I certainly don't like the expansive definition that you have of all. Okay, fine. Then stay in your party. Don't be like the lieutenant governor of Georgia, who said, enough. I'm going over there with the love your neighbor people. But what is politics? Politics is a means to an end, the end of an election. So is election the end? No. Election is the means to another end, an end of government. You use politics to get elected. You use elections to get into the government. So is government the end? No. Government is the means to another end. It's a means to ordering your society in a certain way, consistent with the values of the politics and the electoral politics and the government that got you there. As we explored last year, America's founding principles, especially through the Declaration of Independence, said that government is there as a protector of two things for the people: their safety and their happiness. So power, as expressed through politics and elections and government, is supposed to be directed towards the people's safety and their happiness. In America now, we continue to face weekly, daily efforts to subvert all of that. Texas redistricting, in an effort to say, well, we deserve to have all of the power, regardless of rules, regardless of what a democracy means. The firing of the woman in charge of the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the temerity of telling the truth about the numbers, inconsistent with the alternative facts approach that some have. Those alternative facts promote false narratives, and those are affecting lots of things in this country in terms of the governance of this country. mRNA vaccines. We don't want to do that anymore. Leave that for other countries. If we get infected, too bad. Colleges, the effect on colleges, and so UCLA is the latest one. Pay me $1 billion in protection money if you want to stay open. Law firms. They haven't quite gotten down to my 5-lawyer law firm yet, but we're trying. When I'm out here every week, I'm just waiting for the summons. Crime. Washington, D.C., where I visit frequently because Grace lives there, and she walks around late at night. And I walk around late at night. And crime is way, way down, but one guy gets in a scrape and an assault outside DuPont Circle, and now the federal government may take over Washington, D.C., at least the crime, the public safety there. Climate change doesn't exist. The EPA is going to strike everything that said that climate change is an issue. Each of these things individually, and certainly all of them collectively, point to what happens when you start with politics of a certain type, and you go then to the elections, and the results of those elections is the governance, and that leads to the values that the government stresses, and that ends up leading us to the country that we choose to be because we live in a democracy. But to preserve that democracy and to preserve our abilities to control how the government is going to order society, we need to keep raising our voices against all of these things that threaten everything. So love your neighbor alone is not enough for politics and elections and governance. Thank you. It's got to be love your neighbor plus the powers of your values and the powers of your message. And then it's got to be converting the politics through the elections into governance that does what it's supposed to do, and that is to support the happiness of the people. Not some, but all, as best can be done. Some of you have heard me before talk about when Kathy and I and the three girls met Justice Alito and Justice Ginsburg, when Kathy and I were admitted to the United States Supreme Court. And we had, because we were part of an American Bar Association group, we had a little private meeting in one of the chambers with first Justice Ginsburg and then Justice Alito. And Justice Alito was kind enough to do a question and answer session with a bunch of lawyers in suits and beautiful dresses, and with three little girls. And little Julia, probably around age 8 at the time, asked Justice Alito, "What's the most important part of your job?" And probably because he was a little kid, he said, "Well, that's a really good question." But he also, it might have been just, it was a simple, good question. And he said, he thought about it, and he said, "The most important part of my job is my vote. It's not my decisions, it's my vote. It's the fact that I get to be 1/9 of a decision that will affect the outcome of this country. So we really talked about how it was the vote that was most important. And that was the kind of comment that's made me think over the years. You've heard me talk before about the importance of math, Connie. That when a politician promises, I'm going to do something, they can't do it if they don't have the math. If they don't have Congress, if they don't have the Senate, if they don't have 60 votes in the Senate. Math is really important to all that we do here. And Justice Alito said that's, it's without saying math, it's that math of the vote that is so crucial. And if the end of this power and electoral politics, if the end is a society whose foundation is love your neighbor, then the means to that end is doing the hard work and the math. And the hard work begins with those who are willing to step up and serve and run for politics in this country.